everyone, Catherine Michelle. Today we are going to go over the 911 transcript from the David Crowley case. I'm going to read it to you verbatim as was given to us via an FOIA. I find a lot of the language in the 911 call interesting. We know that stress can cause people to overshare or say too much that really doesn't matter to a particular sequence of events. Or that overshare could be due to other things, like a particular narrative that a person wants to put across, to plant seeds and have someone kind of follow those seeds. I will read this to you, and you guys, decide for yourself how it sits with you. For me, while I read this, it kind of goes both ways. There are times where I see that, as we know, Judy Prochnow and Colin Prochnow made the 911 calls. It's no secret. And per Judy's own words, she stated that she signed a release to let this 911 transcript out. So it is what it is. And I'm not going to repeat her address on here. It is on the documents that are included in the police files, but just for the sake, I just don't feel right by putting her address out there. Anyway, as we go through this, leave comments. Tell me what you guys think. Do you hear anything odd, or are you understanding that Judy's probably under a whole lot of stress and shock from what she saw? Or is Judy also under a whole bunch of stress and shock from what she saw, but then leading a particular narrative? It goes both ways, like I said. It's either way could be true, but I will read you the documents and then you decide for yourself. This is from the Apple Valley Police Department on case file number 150000303, and this is the 911 transcript. We have the unknown male dispatcher. We have Judy Prochnow, Colin Prochnow, which is Judy's husband, and then Lorraine to be. So it starts off with the unknown male, or the dispatcher. I'll just call him dispatcher from here on out. Police and fire, how may I help you? Now, Judy, this is all Judy Prochnow. When it changes from Judy to somebody else, I will let you know. But until this point, this is Judy responding. Yes, this is Judy Prochnow. I live at, she gives her address. The dispatcher, yes. Judy, I think there's been a murder or suicide next door. Dispatcher, what's going on? Judy, well, we have, sorry, I gotta read this verbatim. Dispatcher, what's going on? Judy, well, we've noticed that they haven't, inaudible, they haven't been around. Dispatcher, So there were Christmas presents on the stoop, so I went over there, and there's a dog in the house, and there's definitely some bodies in the living room. Dispatcher, okay, stay on the line with me just a minute. Do you know what their address is? And then she says yes, and they're to the west of her. Dispatcher, okay, so how so? And then Judy, so like, and then she gives an address, 1050 or whatever. Dispatcher, okay, so if I'm facing and looking at your house, Judy, would it be, the house to the right or to the left? If you're facing my house, it would be to your right. To the right. What are you seeing in there? It looks like there's a pile of bodies and one like the head is eaten off. Oh no. I suppose by the dog, and my husband thought they were dummies, but the hands look real. The dispatcher, inaudible. Judy, and they would have been there since before Christmas. Okay, so you haven't seen? And Judy, and all their Christmas lights are still on in the house, and my husband said he saw a gun. Dispatcher, on the floor? Judy, yeah. Dispatcher, okay, stay on the line with me just a minute, please. Judy, it would be a husband, wife, and child. Dispatcher, stay on the line with me, Judy. I'll get some people rolling over there. You saw Christmas presents. And then Judy, Colin, I'm calling 911. Dispatcher, you saw presents inside the home too? Judy, there's presents on the front step and they've been there since before Christmas. And there's definite, I peeked in the front window and it's gross. Colin, what's their address? And then Colin states 1051. Judy then states 1051 Ramsdale Drive. The dispatcher, okay, 1. Judy, don't look in the window, Lorraine. Dispatcher, 1051 Ramsdale, that's okay. Judy, right. Dispatcher, and you say, Judy, Lorraine, don't look in there. Lorraine, no? Judy, no. Dispatcher, so it looks like, Judy, don't look in there. Dispatcher, so it looks like multiple bodies inside? Judy, yes. Dispatcher, and it looks like the dog may have been? Judy, yes. Dispatcher, okay, you saw the gun on the floor there? Judy, yes, my husband saw it. He's not here right now. He's talking to the other neighbor. We hadn't seen any movement over there. We just thought they were gone for Christmas, and we came back from Florida this week, and they still hadn't, inaudible, and the presents were still there, so my husband went over there to check. Dispatcher, okay, they thought they were gone for Christmas, haven't seen any movement. Judy, so there hasn't been anything, movement there since before Christmas. They haven't shoveled. Excuse me, I think I'm going to throw up. Dispatcher, okay, ma'am. I won't keep you any longer. Okay, Judy? Judy, okay, thank you. Dispatcher, I appreciate the call. I got help coming. Judy, okay, bye. Dispatcher, thank you. Now we're going to go over the transcript of the call between Colin Prochnow and the 911 operator. Again, it will be dispatcher and then Colin. The dispatcher, inaudible, it's 911 police fire. How can I help you? Colin, yeah, my name is Colin Prochnow. I live in Apple Valley. And my next door neighbors, they haven't been home since Christmas or before Christmas? ? Dispatcher, okay. Colin, and there's Christmas presents on the front step and there's a dog in the house and nobody answers. Dispatcher, okay, what's the address again? Your phone kind of broke out. And then he says, my address is. And the dispatcher says, okay, do you know what their house number is? Yes, it's 1051. Would like somebody to come over here and what is it? Do a welfare or a well check or something like that? I added an extra something. Sorry, I kind of stuttered there, but it just says or do a well check or something like that. Dispatcher, okay, and you said 1051 for them? Colin, 1051. Okay. Colin, and I looked through the front window and there's like 3 dummies on the floor. I don't think there are any bodies, but it looks like there's a gun next to one. A handgun? Dispatcher, okay, and what was your name again, sir? My first name is Colin, Collin. Last name is Prochnow, P as in Paul, Rochnow. And your phone number? Gives it, and then okay, and then he gives a cell number and his home phone number. And the dispatcher says, all right, in just 1 second. Colin goes on to say, and we were out of town the first week in January, and we left and when we left, the presents were on the step, and I told my wife, I didn't notice them the other day because I didn't look, but I said I'm going to run over there and see if those presents are still there, and they are. And he doesn't answer his cell phone because the neighbor next to him on the other side has his cell number. Dispatcher, okay. Did you already call? Colin, what? Yeah, we tried calling that cell number and nobody answered. Dispatcher, no, I mean, did you call us? Did you already call us? Your wife already called us. Judy just called us. Colin, oh, okay, all right, thank you. Dispatcher, thank you, bye-bye. Colin, yep, bye. Is it just me, or are you guys kind of seeing a pattern here? There's a lot of overshare there that's not necessary. Christmas presents on the stoop. So I went over there. Why would you go over to somebody's house because you see presents on their front door? Doesn't make sense to me. Maybe they were just gone for the day. I mean, you I don't know. It just seems kind of strange to me. And right away, the first person who states murder or suicide is Judy. I think there's been a murder or suicide right away. Police and fire, how may I help you? Yes, this is Judy. I live at, and I think there's been a murder or suicide next door. And we've noticed that they haven't, and it's inaudible, they haven't been around. So there were Christmas presents on the stoop. So I went over there, and there's a dog in the house, and there's definitely some bodies in the living room. Now, okay, I can imagine that must have been a shock. Whether somebody knew about it or not, and I am not saying Judy knew about it. I'm just stating that whether or not somebody knew, that would have been a horrific thing to see. And so that I believe she's being very honest, and it's like a visceral reaction, like, oh my goodness, there are bodies in this living room. And then she goes on to say, and she says she's the first one to state that the head was eaten off, and one like the head is eaten off. It just looks like there's a pile of bodies, and one like the head is eaten off. How can you see that through a living room window? Jumping the gun, throwing out a narrative, throwing out, just whatever came to the top of her head. And it's like, why would you go there? Looking at the one photo we have, that would have not been the first conclusion that I think most people would come to. And they haven't been there since, notice this, since before Christmas. This narrative of since before Christmas is touted by several people. Yet the police's narrative and their conclusion states that the murders occurred in the house on Christmas. Everybody's saying they haven't seen them since before Christmas. So are they there? Or are they not there? I just want to know. And their Christmas lights are still on in the house. And her husband says he saw a gun. And now the police reports do state that a gun was on the floor. So Colin probably really did see the gun on the floor. And then she's like, and the presents are on the front step, and they've been there since before Christmas. Now, going through the other people that were interviewed in the police records, which you can find, and it's on the Justice for David Crowley family page. It's on the Gray Stage, I think Web Press or something. I'll put that link down below as well. It's on Dan Hennon's The Ugly Truth page where he lists all of these documents. These are all there. It's readily available. You guys can all read them. And when you read through those, most people say they didn't even notice any presence on the doorstep until January 1st or January 10th. I think maybe it was January 10th. It was somewhere between the 1st and 10th of January. And now they're saying that they've noticed the presence, that they've been on the stairs, the front step of the house, since before Christmas. And then Judy goes to tell Lorraine, don't look in there, don't. And I mean, she didn't have a right to say that, but I understood why she said that. She doesn't have a right to go around telling anybody what they should or shouldn't do. But at the same time, you understand it's like you don't want anybody else to be shocked by that visual right there. So that's neither here nor there for me. I think nothing of it. I don't think it was her place, but I understood it. To me, that seems reasonable. And then it goes on to say again, now she's reiterating for what? How many times is this said now when we get here? We've noticed they haven't been around. So then the presents were there before Christmas. Let's see. I'm going through this and reading it. And now, okay. And there's presents on the front step. And I just peeked in the window, and it's gross. And then that's when she's asking Colin for the address, and then that's when Lorraine goes to look, and Judy says don't. And then it says, for the fourth time in a row, my husband saw it, and he's not here right now. He's talking to the other neighbor that was speaking of the gun. So it was Colin who saw the gun. Judy doesn't. She never states that she saw the gun on the floor in the 911 call. She doesn't state that at all. Whether or not she did, I don't know. This is the 911 call. And then again, we hadn't seen movement over there. We just thought they were gone for Christmas, and we came back from Florida this week. So they came back the week of January 17th, because that's when the bodies were found. So sometime that week they came back. So again, that's number 4. And there hasn't been anything. Movement since before Christmas. 5th time now. They haven't shoveled. Excuse me, I think I'm going to throw up. Now, I looked at all of the weather for that area for that entire month leading up to when the bodies were found, and there was minimal amount of snow that fell, maybe an inch or two. It was very minimal, and that was weeks before these bodies were even found. So the sidewalk does show some snow on it, but for the most part, it's like, okay. So they didn't shovel their sidewalk. Again, it's just, to me, it's weird. But 5 times she states the narrative of they weren't seen since before Christmas. Now, Colin, he gets on, and first thing out of his mouth is they haven't been home since before Christmas. You're calling 911 to report bodies on the floor, so you give your name, your address, and the first thing out of your mouth is your neighbors haven't been home since before Christmas? And then the dispatcher's like, okay. That's me throwing in that okay, because I don't know how it was said. And then there are presents on the front step, and there's a dog, and there's nobody answers. So again, we're going back to the presents on the front step. And so then he's just asking for a well check. And then he states that he looked through the window, and he didn't believe they were real bodies. He said that it looked like dummies to him on the floor. So could that be shock talking? Absolutely, could be. So I'm not going to give that one way or another. You guys may have a different opinion and a different thought. Would be great to hear it. Then he gives his name, and again, back to the second time he's talking, they're trying to get information from him. But he keeps going back to the narrative. We were out of town the first week in January. And when we left, the presents were on the front. And we didn't notice them the other day. Okay, you notice them before Christmas. You notice them before you go on vacation. You notice them that day. But you don't notice them the day before or the other day? And since you didn't notice them the other day, why would you think to yourself? Now, here's what I find is odd. Listen to this statement. And it says, okay, the dispatcher's like, all right, just 1 second. And then Colin, goes on to say, and we were out of town the first week in January. And when we left, the presents were on the front step. And I told my wife, I didn't notice them the other day because I didn't look. Really? But I said I'm going to run over there and see if those presents are still there. And they are. And he doesn't answer his cell because the neighbor next to him on the other side has his cell phone number. Now, we looked at all of the cell phone records. There is no call made to any of their phones that day. None. So who are they calling? Who is that neighbor calling? I don't know. Did Colin actually see that neighbor make that phone call? Or did the neighbor say they made that phone call? I don't know. And I'm not going to call him a liar here. I'm just saying the cell phone records show no calls made to David's or Camel's cell phone. So the whole entire narrative, all coming from Colin, is they were gone before Christmas, the presents were there. They were gone before Christmas, the presents were there. You know, I don't know. To me, it's just very, very odd. And when I read it all together, and to get a better feel for what was said, I was typing this out, and it helped kind of bring to home some of these points. Why? Why is that the only thing they're saying? They're not like, oh my God, my neighbors are dead. Please send help. I'm so afraid. This is scary. They have a child in the house. None of that. It's all about where I was. I saw presents. They weren't home since before Christmas. Where I was, we saw presents. They weren't there before Christmas. Judy says it 5 times. Colin says it, I believe, twice. It's a total of 7 times without any other mention of what really happened or what they were seeing. I mean, is that odd to you? I find it very strange. Very, very strange. Again, could that be stress talking? Or could that be a preconceived narrative? Judy gets highly upset, and maybe rightfully so, when she's questioned about this. But I have offered twice. I offered to talk to her here, and then I went to her site on her day, and then she sends me a private message when she didn't show and she saw my video where I called her out on it because we went live. We're like, hey, where are you? We're here. And then she's like, well, you didn't provide me a phone number. I'm like, why would I provide you a number to your call-in debate? So she's never there to explain this and to help. And again, she doesn't have to. Let's be honest, she doesn't have to. But it would be nice to understand why the only thing they could think about was their narrative, where they saw presents that nobody else saw, and that the family hadn't been seen since before Christmas. There was one other neighbor who stated they hadn't seen them since before Christmas. And yet these murders took place, according to the police, in the house on or the day after Christmas. So if all these neighbors are noticing movement in what the Crowley family does, I would think they would notice they were there on Christmas. But nobody saw them before. And again, this kind of all ties in with a lot of what we are piecing together with the phone records. And we know phones can track you and what you do, but calls made, texts received, and things just kind of all abruptly stop before Christmas. But we know the bodies were not there since before Christmas. So what happened between the time that everyone stopped seeing them? Where was that family? And the time that their bodies were found? There's a huge time gap. It's actually like, over a month, well over a month. So, it's sad. So tell me what you think about that 911 transcript.